Good afternoon, everyone. I'm tempted to do like a nice meow, but I'm too bashful. I think I started blushing even considering doing it. All right, I'm associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. Position disclosure, I'm out of Reddit, I'm out of Apple, I'm out of DJT stock and last week's calls, obviously. I think I'm out of something else, but I don't remember. I should cover it. Oh, I'm out of GME. There you go. Thanks, Rich. All right. So, yeah, quite the day today. I guess starting with the market, it looks like we downticked a little bit since the close. So after this little downtick, 30 cents or so, we're actually negative on the day. The Qs are up a little bit, despite also a little downtick after the close, up 0.2%. Definitely disappointed with the amount that the Russell gave back today. To only close up 0.1%. With the TLT up today, holding above 90, but also off of highs. I'd say that was probably the bigger disappointment today was the downside grind really throughout most of the trading session in the Russell. It certainly didn't really feel like a boring weakish day, given all the action with the return of Roaring Kitty, which I'll be honest, I never followed this Roaring Kitty situation very much, even the first time around. Obviously, I know who this person is because it set everything off. I haven't seen that movie. Didn't they make a movie about it? I haven't seen the movie. And I didn't realize that this person, someone correct me if I'm wrong because I really don't know everything that's going on. I didn't realize that this person kind of fell off the face of the earth, it seems like, to some degree. If I'm reading that right, he hasn't posted on Twitter since 2011 until today. So I didn't even really realize that. I just obviously saw GameStop ripping, and everyone was saying, Roaring Kitty made a post or whatever, and I didn't realize, like, I don't know. I thought he just said something good, like, let's get in GameStop, and then I actually, is that, what did I say? 2021, right? Yeah, not 2011. Anyway, and then I couldn't even understand the meme right away. It shows you how dumb I am. I guess it's just a person moving forward in their chair playing video games. It took me a second to even understand what I was looking at. And again, I didn't realize that this person hadn't posted anything for a few years. So I guess that's what woke everything up. From a market perspective, I think we were kind of expecting the market to be a little bit boring today. Just a Monday in front of PPI and CPI. PPI is first this time around. It doesn't happen too often. We have PPI tomorrow and CPI on Wednesday. I don't know why that happens every once in a while. It seems like it's like once or twice a year. The PPI is on the Tuesday instead of the Thursday, and CPI is always on the Wednesday. But coming into today's trading session, we had recognized that this market is very clearly bullish now, up trading above 515. ADMA on the daily chart is now above 515, which is really confirming that upside move. We had $5.50 of extension at the open, which is just entering into that no man's land zone. So you kind of figured that with us gapping up this morning and being moderately extended, but also in front of PPI and CPI, that from a market perspective, today was a day to probably do less is more. Would certainly say to err to the side of being long, even though that wouldn't have worked out if you were doing new purchases today in the market because we kind of grinded lower throughout the trading session. But the market technicals here are very bullish, so I would err on the side of being long. I still stand by that even if it didn't work today. But the market itself, it makes sense. Take a pause, moderately extended on a Monday in front of a big week, and we'll see what happens. We took a look at kind of an update from Bank of America this morning for the market will move on the PPI tomorrow, but the main event's really the CPI. The market moves significantly more on the CPI than it does on the PPI. So we had noted last week that there was a potential of a short squeeze in treasuries from the CTAs that are out there at certain trigger levels. Well, the update this morning from that Bank of America note is that we didn't get high enough at any point last week to begin to trigger that short squeeze. So what we're talking about this morning is that Wednesday seems like it's really important. There's certainly a risk that the market goes down. I actually think that the risk is more to the upside, though. If the I think if CPI comes in line at 0.3%, that this market will actually move up on that. If there's any chance that number comes in light, that is what I think would be needed to get this TLT high enough to potentially trigger a feedback cycle of buying to get the CTAs to start squeezing. And if that brings interest rates down, then the trade that I've already kind of been looking for a little bit recently is a bigger bounce back trade in some of these more beaten up long duration stocks, especially if the interest rate situation can improve in their favor a little bit. And then interestingly enough, in front of that today, we get Roaring Kitty and all these stocks that are squeezing higher. So the real interesting thing to me, or thing that I'm most curious about, as I'm seeing GameStop trade a little bit higher right now after hours, is this just going to be like a one-day phenomenon and that's it? We move on. We've had that happen plenty of times in the past, since the 2020-2021 episode where we were in a massive bubble for a ton of stocks. We've seen little fits and starts where they try to squeeze these things up, but it's never gained any consistent or significant traction as far as I'm concerned. And today, obviously, was a really big day. GameStop at a certain point was up 110% on a day. Right now, it's up 75%. Looks like it closed up like 75% on the day. So the thing that I've got in my head right now is if there's any chance that they can maintain this for a couple of days here, and if somehow you're able to combine that with a CPI that comes in line to light, then forget it. These stocks could really give a significantly higher move. Because at the same time as I already thought that positioning made sense to start getting involved in them, if that CPI can come a little bit light, if you get some interest rate relief, which should expand the multiples of these stocks a little bit to begin with and get their prices higher, and then you can combine that with these Wall Street Bets people coming back, and it being more than just a one-day fling where they come in, buy highs, and lose all their money, then it could be significant. So it's interesting. Unfortunately, I got pushed out of that GameStop trade that I had this afternoon, which was looking pretty good at like 315 when it got up to 3250. I got pushed out of that into the pullback because I really would have liked to have kept some. Just I think it's not impossible at all, if some of what I'm describing is true, that we see this GameStop back above $50. I think that it would be very reasonable, and honestly, it could happen this week. But I think that we do need to see some relief on these inflation numbers in the next couple of days in order to continue this. I think that if you get a hot CPI, if that number comes in hot, you can have all the roaring kitties in the world, and these things probably aren't going to be giving you too much real continuation. So to be seen. It should be an exciting week now, especially that we've got the GameStops of the world all flying. Definitely interesting to see this price action. I welcome it. It's exciting, and it not only is it exciting, but it's fun, and it creates good short-term trading opportunity. One thing that I would say about it is we have to take lessons learned, if this sticks around, from previous market environments, and make sure that we can be even more successful in this one. When I've looked back on my own trading in that late 2020, beginning of 2021 period, when all these names were squeezing and everything else, I really didn't participate in a major way from a P&L perspective on the upside in those huge squeezes. If anything, I participated more on the short side, which was very difficult with some mixed results. I remember on the AMC day being down almost six figures in the name, and finishing positive in the trade by like the next day or the day after that because it was so crazy. But it would have just been better to be on the long side of some of these things to begin with. So, the lessons that I really learned from that period of time, if this market sticks around, is one, not to be afraid to chase a little bit. You know, realistic, like got to be realistic. You can't overly chase. You have to mind your risk rewards with your setups. But I think the biggest thing that held me back in that period of time was just that I had honestly been trading for too long and was too rational. And I think that people who knew nothing about the market probably, a lot of them were able to perform even better than I did, because I'm looking at, you know, Palantir when it was at like 20 something dollars, let alone before it went to 47. And I'm saying to myself, Palantir at $22, this makes absolutely no sense. This is a garbage company. And I do think Palantir's come a long way in the last 3 years. And now at, a price of the low 20s here, I'm bullish on it, and I'm looking for higher price action. But I remember, back in this period, seeing it more in like, I guess it was more in this area here, seeing it rip up to these mid 20s off of this IPO that was at like $8. And I thought it was a pretty garbage company. It had been around for 15 years or whatever, had never printed a penny of actual profit. That this seemed ridiculous to me. And instead of just saying like, these things can continue to move up. It doesn't matter. Like a squeeze is a squeeze, an option flow, gamma squeezes. I mean, that's really when I first for myself was even learning about how option flow can create these gamma squeezes. And I remember being short Palantir on some of these days in this area with it kind of ripping in my face, and just watching this consistent large order option flow just coming in over and over and over again, and just squeezing it higher and squeezing it higher, and I'm trying to short it, and I'm saying to myself, I don't understand these buyers, this doesn't make any logical sense. Well, it didn't make any logical sense. I think that's accurate, but it doesn't have to either. I mean, just look at DJT, which now I've been long for a few trading sessions, either through the stock or through the options. Doesn't make any logical sense. But what do we see? FinViz says that DJT's got a 193% short float. So even if I think the thing is worth zero, I don't actually. It kind of blows my mind that this thing's got, if that's accurate, 193% short float, or we saw from a different resource 160% short float, that it's still at $52. Like who's come in and bought enough of this stock to hold it up in the face of that degree of short selling? But now, when you look at where the stock is actually trading, and I think this is part of Brandt's thesis, when you look at where the stock is actually trading and you see it's got 160, 190% short flow, whatever it is, you almost look at this thing and ask yourself, well, how is it possible that this doesn't go higher? If something just triggers this thing to squeeze up and that many people are short, it easily could see 65, 75, $100. Why not? It trades really thin, but you have to kind of hit that point where it creates those squeezes to begin with, and that's always the big question. There's been plenty of times, I think, over the course of the last year or two, where we'll see like Carvana up really big on earnings, or Wayfair moving higher, and I always kind of throw out the thesis or thought process like, hey, keep in the back of your head, at a certain point, a squeeze in one part of the market can create a squeeze in another part of the market. We certainly saw that in 2021. It's just you got to kind of hit those triggers, I think, really to begin with, and then those squeezes can broaden out. So we'll see. It doesn't have to be rational. If there's weaponized gamma, using Bill's comment right here, that's coming into the market, they can bring these things to whatever price they want in the short to medium term. In the very, very long term, I do think that value will wield its sword and bring companies to where they belong. But in the short term, these moves, especially when you're seeing like consistent option flow coming in, they can kind of take it anywhere. And big shout out to the team to even recognizing that in GameStop. I remember I was annoyed at myself because we started seeing larger flow back here in the very end of April in this like 3-day up move here. I was annoyed at myself for not being involved, and I was annoyed at myself for missing this kind of move here. And then we were able to find our opportunity to be able to get stock on the 6th for a lot of us. It made for a really good trading vehicle for a few days. I was still stringing some over the weekend. Worked out really well, and then they start to squeeze some of these other names, which I am looking for squeezes for, but not necessarily to this degree. And again, we just got to be cognizant that we can chase price a little bit sometimes for momentum. And I'll even use this big as an example, even if it didn't close well. I think Pat mentioned this one, and we saw some option flow hit when it was still in like the 360s or very low 370s. You can chase a little bit, a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily. Obviously, I'm looking at this chart with hindsight, but I wouldn't necessarily chase like the 5th big green bar in a row. But when you're looking at bar 2 and you got big volume confirmation and you're seeing option flow come in, you might be able to scoop up, just as more of a pure momentum style trade, some big in the low 370s versus the low of the second bar if you want to use that as like a pure momentum stop loss, or the low of the first bar if you want to give it a little bit of space, and just see what these things can do and see if they can squeeze. There were so many of them this morning that worked to various degrees of success. Bed Bath & Beyond is back with this BYON. I mean, huge move. AMC was actually an interesting case because I felt that this was one of the bigger underperformers of these potential squeeze names today. It gapped up 17%, but it couldn't do anything the entire beginning of the day. It was very heavy. It broke lows. And I think that there was a tweet that came out. Great call from Josh, by the way, on this, from Zach Morris, whoever that is. I only know him from Saved by the Bell. But I've heard the name with trading before, at about 11 o'clock. And then that broke this thing through highs and woke this thing up. And then this thing gave that big move. If you got involved in Josh's call out when the volume came in, you easily could have had stock from these, 360s, 370s, and caught a move up to 580. And there was no extension there at all. It was just waking up, volume was coming in, and it was breaking highs. So, and yet at the same time, Dennis had a fantastic call out on the short after that last gap up here. I don't remember exactly what the price was or where it opened after that gap, but it opened in this 36.50 to 37.50 area, and that's great patience there. Where it's kind of, I think he mentioned the $35 area as being like a supply zone when this thing was still in the very low 30s, and it just squeezed up to that point where it was like, okay, and it was halting over and over. And then we saw the market begin to switch when on that last halt it came in with a sell imbalance instead of a buy imbalance, which usually then indicates that you're going to gap down. And if you're going to gap down off that halt, that's probably the end of the bigger momentum move. So just a lot of opportunity on both sides. If you're putting the short on, you need to be ultra patient. That was the thing that I learned in that 2021 period. Was I right when I was shorting Palantir in the low 20s or mid 20s or whatever it was back then? Yeah, I was right. The stock worked it down to where I thought it belonged, $6. But guess what? I had to blow myself out of that trade into this up move when they squeezed it up to $45. I think I blew myself out somewhere in the low to mid 30s for like a pretty decent loss, even though that the idea was right. And luckily I did, because if this thing went up to 45 with the size I had, who knows if my account would have survived it. So, if you're going to come in on that short side, you got to be patient. These stocks can be irrational. They can go for very long or much further than you might expect. And a big thing to pay attention to with that is definitely going to be your flow. And that was what we learned at that period of time. And the other thing that we learned is not to be afraid to buy them. Even if it feels like you're chasing a little bit within reason, don't be afraid to buy them. Instead of getting stopped out at $33, I could have been buying $33 and caught the move to 45. Even if it didn't make logical, rational sense, the technicals here are clearly breaking out of a wedge to the upside, and again, that option flow was absurd and consistent and just kind of never stopped in that period of time. So we'll see if it sticks around. We'll see if this type of movement sticks around. I hope it does. It creates for some really exciting trading. It creates for a lot of opportunity. The market here looks overall really bullish. We're waking up some of these growth names a little bit. If the CPI can just not blow out to the upside, I think that adds fuel to the fire. You might see a squeeze higher in treasuries. Interest rates come down a little bit, and that would just really be fuel on the fire. So we'll see how it plays out. I see this GameStop's up $1 after hours, so that's already starting to look good for continuation. We'll see. That's all that I got. Great day today. I'm glad that some of you guys were really on the right side of these trades. I'm really pumped when I see traders in the team make money on both sides. Like you had Rich making money GameStop long. I think Nick was making money GameStop long. I was making money GameStop long. But then you had Dennis making money GameStop short. You had Pat making money GameStop short. You had Josh surviving. So I totally love when we get to see that on both sides. It's really cool. So that's all that I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions about today's action or about anything else. It was definitely an exciting one. I got Baba tomorrow morning. That'll be exciting. I'm not seeing anything in the VTF yet. Popping over to the YouTube. Robert wants to know if this is dangerous for the market. I don't think it's necessarily dangerous for the market. I don't think it's necessarily dangerous for the market. It's probably dangerous for retail investors. I'm sure that if you go back and you look at a long enough of a time frame in that 2021 period, that retail got smoked on it. You know, and I remember the amount of calls that I was getting. I think it was in 2022 from people who in the retail universe were calling me up and being like, I made, or maybe it was around April 2021 off 2020's profits. I don't remember if it was around April 2021 or April 2022, but I remember fielding a lot of calls from retail people who wanted to learn a little bit more about prop, but had these stories of like, I made $300,000 trading options on GameStop and owe taxes on it, but I lost everything plus a whole lot more, and the government still wants me to pay taxes on it. And it was just like all these nightmare scenarios from a lot of people. So potentially could be really bad for retail. Hopefully for us, we're a little bit smarter with our risk management. From Uvixi Bull, forgive me for not remembering the details, but wasn't GME a little bit of a dud these past few years due to the CEO changing and the new guy did a crypto NFT thing that failed? Yeah, GameStop's been a dud. I don't think it's been as much of a dud as AMC. AMC's been awful. That's the one that I think has been really, really bad for shareholders because of everything that they've done to really dilute that stock back down. GameStop, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's been some few fits and starts here of movement higher as recently as 2022, not really so much in 2023, where it would rip higher for a handful of days and then fail. So that's the question I'm asking myself here is, can this one give any further legs, or is this also going to be a similar, couple day phenomenon and then that's it? And it feels to me, especially because we haven't seen this happen in a while, and because a lot of these stocks are coming from much lower prices than they did previously, that this one has the potential to have some legs and stick around for a little bit. Especially, I really think that, as crazy as it sounds, the continuation of some of this Wall Street Bets drama will be based on if CPI is light or not. As I see GameStop now up $2 from its closing price. From Apex Joy asking me about CRM. Do you think CRM is range bound or a bowl shape bottoming? I think it's range bound, but that it can break out of this range. It's applying some upside pressure and hasn't failed when these moving averages caught up, and it's a great company. Because I think that you could look at CRM potentially long through 280 into the gap as a trade. From Gabriel, do I think Shaq could be a beneficiary of? Yep, yeah. I think Shaq could be a beneficiary of light CPI. I do. Obviously, a little bit of a different name than Bed Bath and Beyond or GameStop, but Shaq, from my understanding, is still kind of a growthy stock that trades a little bit at a higher multiple and is focused on expansion. So, yeah, this could be another type of name that could benefit from a lighter CPI if it happens. You're looking at 108 to 109 for a break higher. Yeah, that's where your resistance is. Barron said that Shaq is in a profit margin expansion period until 2029. Okay, good to know. I'm a big fan of Shake Shack. I think they got some of the best fast food out there. That's another one that I'm looking forward to when I get back to real life. Get back to New York City. I'm looking forward to some Shake Shack. I'm looking forward to some Chipotle. Probably the first two places I hit. AMC still running after hours? Wow. Yep. I thought that they might do this in GameStop. I really wanted to swing some GameStop today, but it just pushed me out of that position when it broke 29.50 at 15.25. At 3.25, I got pushed out. It's unfortunate. I would have kept it. What else, guys? It's a big day today. No one has any questions? I know it's a Monday. Maybe it's a little straightforward. But if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to help. Or I'm happy to go on Monday and go get some exercise. Going once. Going twice. All right. Quick afternoon meeting, all things considered. But we'll wrap it up there. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see where we open tomorrow. We'll see what these stocks can do. We'll see what the PPI can do. And we'll take it from there. So have a great night.